Welcome to SCOTUS Madness with myself, Michael Look, and my best friend over here, Jack Cormos. Today we will be reviewing the crazy matchups, the upsets, and the results of U.S. Supreme Court March Madness.
Okay, quick overview. I'm just going to be going through why we rated them first and bottom of the bracket for each section. First, we got the Bill of Rights section. We put Tinker vs. Des Moines on the top because it was about freedom of speech in a school setting, which lots of people hold very dear to them. We also put Lemon vs. Kurtzman at the bottom, which disbanded any state passing of laws that established a religious body. Next, in the Civil Rights and Privacy region, Brown vs. Board of Education on top. Obviously, separate is not equal. And then we got Miranda versus Arizona on bottom. Reading your Miranda rights, many people already know them, which is why we did put that at the bottom. Now we got the political process region. We have Citizens United versus FEC, landmark case. It gave companies the right to donate any amount of money to any campaign that could throw elections. We put Bush versus Gore at the bottom of that one because it was a one-time thing, did not set any precedents for the future. Lastly, we got the constitutional powers region. We got Marbury versus Madison at the top because it did establish judicial review, gave the court pretty much all of its power. And at the bottom, we do have U.S. versus Nixon, which told Nixon that he did not have the executive privilege to not release those tapes, a one-time thing.
In our first round, our first case was a blowout with first seeded Marbury versus Madison absolutely destroying United States versus Nixon. In our second case, Gibbons versus Ogden against the Heart of Atlanta Motel versus United States, where Gibbons took out Heart of Atlanta. This was justified because Gibbons set a new precedent where Congress could use the Commerce Clause to justify many of their new laws. In our third case, in a really tight match, Gibbons versus Wainwright defeated Dred Scott versus Sanford because Gideon extended Sixth Amendment rights to all states rather than just reaffirming slavery. In our fourth case, United States versus Lopez defeated Plessy versus Ferguson in a huge upset because it restricted the Commerce Clause, therefore restricting Congress's power, a huge power cap on Congress. In our fifth case, Baker versus Carr defeated Shelby County versus Holder in a tight one because Baker versus Carr re-examined, to this day, redistricting by allowing courts federally run to ask states to redistrict state lines. Now on to the Sweet 16. Marbury versus Madison sweeps over Gibbons versus Ogden because we felt the power of judicial review trumps over the expansion of the Commerce Clause. Gideon versus Wainwright defeats U.S. versus Lopez in a tough battle because affording an attorney to all people, including people in states, allows for the complete use of the Sixth Amendment, rather than Lopez, who simply limited the Commerce Clause. Obergefell versus Hodges will trump over Loving versus Virginia because even though both made huge changes for social justice, Obergefell versus Hodges was made more recently and is more relevant to today's society. Now on to Emily in the Elite Eight.
Hey everyone, I'm Jack and I'm back and I'm here to discuss the Elite Eight. So first we have Marbury versus Madison with a defeat over Gideon versus Wainwright. Really close matchup, but because of the power of judicial review, setting the precedent for all cases that gives the Supreme Court its legitimacy, we did decide that Marbury versus Madison is going to take the W, because Gideon versus Wainwright just really implemented the Sixth Amendment to all states. Next, we have Tinker versus Des Moines going up against Mate versus Ohio. Quite an upset here, because but we believe that the freedom to express oneself in a school setting was just a tiny bit more important than the violation of the Fourth Amendment. Others would disagree, but that's just what we went with. And then for the civil rights region, we have Brown versus Board of Education, a crowd favorite, going up against Obergefell versus Hodges, also a crowd favorite. So super tight match as you could imagine. Arguably, Brown versus Board of Education was more substantially impactful than Obergefell versus Hodges, which is why we did push that one through. Lastly, in the Elite Eight, we have political process. Citizens United versus FEC going up against McCulloch versus Maryland, but, you know, McCulloch versus Maryland is really a crowd favorite, so we did have to push that one through. It's the decision to hold that the Supreme Court can interpret the Constitution however it would like. Final four, really important games here. We have Tinker versus Des Moines going up against Marbury versus Madison. Now, sadly, Tinker versus Des Moines is going to be knocked out because Marbury versus Madison did establish judicial review nationwide. It gave the court extreme power, a lot of shift in governmental power there, whereas Tinker versus Des Moines was really just in the school setting and freedom of speech associated with that. In the other bracket, we have Brown versus Board of Education going up against McCulloch versus Maryland. We did decide that McCulloch versus Maryland was going to push through. Might have been a big upset because most people do consider Brown versus Board of Education extremely important and influential, which it was, but we did think that giving the courts the power to interpret the Constitution however they wished was going to be just a little bit more important and did push it through to the final two. Please explain to us McCulloch versus Maryland going up against Marbury versus Madison. What's happening there?
Well, here's what's happening. McCulloch won in a buzzer beater. It was insane. So the reason why we felt that way was because here's what happened. McCulloch versus Maryland faced Marbury versus Madison after this whole epic tournament, and we felt that McCulloch
Definitely
won.
epic, Micah.
Insanely epic. Thank you. The committee led by Matthew LaBelle, a great guy, felt that because McCulloch versus Maryland allowed for justices to interpret the Constitution in really any way that they want or any way that they see fit because of sort of just implied verses of the Constitution, we felt that that was the biggest step in power that the Supreme Court has ever given itself.
I really
And that's why we felt that it was the most important one. Whereas Marbury versus Madison was necessary to establish the three equal branches of government, which would have had to have been established in some sort of a way, we felt that McCulloch versus Maryland gave them more than that power. It gave them really the power to do whatever they want with the Constitution, in a sense.
Thank you so much for tuning into Supreme Court Madness. This is Micah Look, and I'm Jack Kormos, and we hope to see you next week.
Thank you. And God bless the United States of America.
Please put